Very happy to be joined by guest Philip Fama to recap. I feel like I need a recovery myself after a long Indian Wells session, the fifth unofficial slam, and some amazing matches. Philip, thanks for joining us to break it all down.
No, I appreciate you having me on, and it's always good to catch up with you guys. Mike is not here, but hopefully I can replace him in some capacity. So it's great to see you again, and I'm ready to talk about the fifth slam. Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. And fresh in my mind, guilty as charged here. I picked Carlos Alcaraz to win on the men's side and keep this undefeated streak going. But I think everybody's, if he wasn't the first choice, it felt like the second choice was probably Jannik Sinner. And kudos to him. What a phenomenal tournament he played, completing his trophy set at the Masters 1000 hardcourt events as he captures the Miami Open, beating Daniil Medvedev in straight sets, 7-6, 7-6. I mean, a lot of places to go to with his tournament overall, but what impressed you the most over the past stretch of time from Sinner and the tennis he delivered here in California?
It's really hard to comprehend how well not just Carlos is doing, but Jannik is doing. This guy has completed hardcourt tennis already 6 years earlier than Roger Federer did it, winning every major hardcourt tournament, including the ATP finals, both majors. And seeing him do it too in this field is really great. And I mentioned it in my notes too before coming on, was seeing him. I genuinely think that he is the best hardcourt player right now, despite Alcaraz being the best overall player. I think Jannik is doing things with Alcaraz as the new generation, and I can't even say new generation for that matter, with the way he's playing. It's really cool to see him achieve this already, and seeing him do it in that almost the Roger Federer-esque. I speak about Roger Federer again, because with the pink kit as well, seeing them finally doing something different for the Italian man to boost his style, because during the Winter Olympics, we saw him we saw what he was able to wear at Nike. And this is another tangent from him. That's not tennis performance, but tennis off the court as well. Seeing him achieve these things it's unbelievable to see. So Jannik definitely proved himself to be the 1 or 2 spot player in the world. And he did it over Medvedev, who didn't drop a set this entire tournament.
Yeah, it was a formidable stretch of matches for Sinner. And, you mentioned this is not the next generation. This is the current generation. Sinner has established that. Carlos Alcaraz has established himself as that as well. What I found really cool about Sinner's run here is he kind of played and beat the next gen, if you think about it. After those first couple wins and dismantling our Canadian Denis Shapovalov in the second round, he plays a great match with João Fonseca, electrifying 2 sets, 7-6, 7-6, a match where Fonseca probably could have won that first set without a doubt. Sinner so tough under pressure, and that was like, I think if you love ball speed and just absolute firepower from the back of the court, that was one of the matches to see. And then he turns around and beats young American learner Tien 6-1, 6-2 in the quarters. So you got a little taste of the next gen who realize, they still have a little bit of a ways to go, but you felt like both Tien and Fonseca are taking strides and taking steps, and I think top 10 is going to be on the horizon for them soon. Then you get more of the veteran, someone who's been around for some time, in Sasha Zverev, 6-2, 6-4, and then again, the veteran who looks back in form, Daniil Medvedev, 7-6, 7-6. Medvedev led in both of these tie breaks. Let a volley go past at 5-4 in the opening tiebreak. I felt like that cost him the first set, and then he's up 4-0 in the second set tiebreak. And the mental resilience from Jannik Sinner under pressure, just cool as a cucumber. We see it time and again, and I still find it just so staggering how he's never phased whatsoever.
He isn't. And I think with that too, if we go back to Medvedev, I think this is the Medvedev from old, right? This is the Medvedev we expected to see continuing after winning the US Open, continuing seeing his form. And I think that's what we expected in 2025 last year with the season that he had. Unfortunately, it wasn't the season that any of us expected. And he finally parted ways with his former coach, and now with his new regime in. He's won 2 titles already this year. He's looking like that U.S. Open Daniil Medvedev that we saw win his first and only Grand Slam for that matter, and kind of putting himself ahead of what we've seen from Zverev. Zverev is still a formidable opponent, and a lot of people see that and are able to attest to that and see his game. But with this younger generation, when you see Fonseca play the way he did against Sinner, him playing that level against any other opponent, including Alcaraz, he probably would have won that match. And seeing that level and seeing what he's going to be doing at the Miami Open as well, we saw, I believe, on Tennis Channel when they interviewed James Blake will never make that mistake again of putting Fonseca out on a outside court. He's going to be central coming into it. So the next generation is here, especially with Lerner beating opponents like Ben Shelton already. We had Michelson beat Taylor Fritz as well at Indian Wells. So you have the two California kids battling it out. There were so many other storylines and players that we saw making headlines as well. We can't forget Cam Norrie is now, again, the number one Brit in the world. We had Rinky Hijikata, the player that he lost to, another former college player as well, lost to Norrie. He beat Darderi and Bublik on his way to losing to Norrie in the final stages of that tournament. Who else do we have? Another headline that we have to talk about is Lerner and Ben facing off against each other. Their coaches, Brian and Michael. Michael Chang is now Lerner's coach, and Michael beat Ben's dad in 1991 in Charlotte in 3 sets. Even though that was their only meeting, it's still cool to see them have that history ingrained into the new generation. So it's really cool to see that come back to life as well.
Definitely.
And while my thoughts are kind of all over the place, I will say for Medvedev, we saw, like, this is the level that we saw back, like I've said before, back when he won the US Open. But I think that level is hard to maintain. Like Alcaraz even saying it during his press conference, like he definitely thought Medvedev, the way he was playing, was the outright winner of that match. You don't really hear that from some of the other top players, but hearing that from Alcaraz come out and just say flat out, he was just so much better than me, in a way that didn't surprise him, but was surprised to see when that form came to Medvedev. It definitely comes in earlier in the tournament, but to do it against the number one player in the world is another level. So the consistency form is going to be the toughest part for him to do that over and over and over again.
Yeah, I think he has the awareness, and you know, he's a smart guy to know he has to deliver something incredibly special to beat an Alcaraz or to challenge and beat a Jannik Sinner. And you know, he kind of had Sinner's number early on in Jannik's career, and obviously that has shifted, and the course of the rivalry has shifted, but it really did look like Danil of old. It reminded me of some of the tennis we saw him play through stretches in the summer where he'd play incredible in Canada and Cincinnati. He had that unbelievable run, if we recall, back in 2019 when he made the U.S. Open final, but had won a string of hardcourt tournaments and reaching finals and playing at the upper echelon of the game. I feel like he's found and struck a good balance between being rock solid defensively from the baseline while also knowing when to be aggressive and put pressure on.
Absolutely.
And look, for Carlos Alcaraz, I mean, it seems crazy to get on a podcast and criticize this guy. He's lost one match this season.
Yeah.
I just wonder, the only thing I'm maybe surprised by in that performance, and you know, it was like a 12 out of 10 for Medvedev, is for someone who has such a deep toolbox as Alcaraz does, I'm surprised he didn't find something tactically different, maybe in the second set, to possibly change things up and find a way to force a third.
I think that's a really good point, coming from like after, especially, and I think it all attributes maybe to Juan Carlos Ferrero when they split at the beginning of this year, and the most shocking news story to start a tennis season with. I think this is the kind of situation where you can look back at it and go, if Juan Carlos was still in his box, if there was still someone backing him to kind of have that mentality, to have that toolbox, to just maybe help him realize what else he had in his bag to push him to the next level, to beat someone that is already playing a 12 out of 10, to take your game to the next level. Maybe that's something we can look back at that match and go, maybe we could have seen something different. Maybe he could have raised his level to just bring Medvedev's down a notch. And that's where it's not necessarily like it's all because of this. It's just a more
For
of a
sure.
what if statement when it comes to changing the course of a match when someone's playing out of their minds.
No, exactly. And look, Medvedev played great in the final two. I think he hit a really good reality in his press conference afterwards that if you beat one of these guys, he sort of said, after I beat Alcaraz in the semifinal, you kind of have this feeling that you won a final.
Yeah.
And just this level of how tall of an order it would be to beat these two back to back, I think it's too tall of an order for the rest of the tour. That's the sense I get. It's still too tall of an order for Novak Djokovic, who beat Jannik Sinner in the semis of Australia and, couldn't manage to back that over Alcaraz in the finals. This is the question right now. Are we going to see a third guy challenge these two? And I still feel like, well, maybe last year, to me, it felt like a chasm. I still think it's a gap right now.
I do too, but when you have guys like Jack Draper and Arthur Fils showing their level of stepping it up and seeing them healthy too. I mean, Fils beat your guy FAA after FAA had a tough match against friend and someone who his dad coached, Gabby Diallo, and former Kentucky Wildcat. So when you have guys like that and Draper beating Novak at Indian Wells to possibly maintain his run into to defend his title at Indian Wells. Unfortunately, that was not so for the Brit, but seeing Jack Draper healthy and Fils healthy, you have more guys in the mix to challenge for that third spot. And it's hard to say that when you have guys like Zverev and Fritz and Shelton. You have a plethora of other players that are ready to go and ready to take that spot, but never really showed that consistency because they were kind of that in-between generation, like the Dimitrov and Nishikori was for my generation and your generation as well.
Yep.
So it's we're getting to that point where we are in, to use your words, a chasm where there's not necessarily a definitive third guy. We saw it with Murray and Wawrinka kind of blitzing in before Novak became the third guy to then surpass Rafa and Roger, but it's going to be one of those guys where they have the potential as long as they stay healthy. It's a matter of just, it's not if, but when.
Yeah. Yeah, kudos to Jack Draper, as you said, big time 3-set win over Novak Djokovic. Obviously, had a lot of points to defend. Doesn't back up the title, but it's good to see him healthy and competing at this level again. Felix Auger-Aliassime lost in the round of 16. Does move back to number 8 right now in the rankings, and back inside the top 10, certainly where he belongs. And I think he's going to get much higher this season is Daniil Medvedev. I feel like we're going to see him by the end of this year in that top 5 range personally, especially given his struggles this year. There's not really that much to defend for him.
No, and seeing what he's able to accomplish. And while we kind of have that small sample size, even though we can't really say small because the tour is just everlasting at this point, Medvedev could be top 5 and possibly is already in that range of ATP finals for sure, without a doubt. And seeing, it's just going to be a matter of consistency and how I thought mentally at this tournament too, when you see Medvedev playing and having that cool head without like lashing out as much and having a new coach regime has maybe changed that. I think Medvedev is definitely going to be, I'm going to definitively say that he'll probably be in the ATP finals by the end of the year. Whether or not that is already 2 titles under his belt, I think it's just a positive reaction and a positive trajectory at this point.
I agree with you. I'm going to pose one last question to you here. And this was not in our briefing notes, actually, so I'm going to put you on the spot. Jannik Sinner has closed the gap here and is now 2,140 points back of that world number 1 ranking. Doesn't have to worry about defending anything here in Miami, as we know. Had missed that block of time from suspension the previous year, so we'll have a couple opportunities on clay. Do we think Jannik catches Carlos at some point this season?
It's a really good question, and looking back and reading what the suspension did for him, not just personally, but mentally and physically, for that matter, we'll go more physically through this route. It kind of helped him defend and get points. And I can't believe I'm saying that after a suspension after last year, but a lot of people are saying that his ability to not only, you can't even use the word clean slate after being suspended for his situation, but it's almost like he has the opportunity to do it at a faster rate than other people would give him credit for, because after winning Indian Wells and now going into Miami and going into all these tournaments, I believe the first tournament he played after a suspension, I think, was Rome. So
that's right. Yeah,
it's going to be a lot easier for him to gain ground when he doesn't have anything to defend, like you said. I think it's really going to come down to, I think Wimbledon is going to be the major factor, whether or not they're going to be in that number one battle, if one's going to pass one another before that happens.
Yeah.
So it's going to come down to Wimbledon and leading into the US Open to see who's going to be world number one.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there, and we'll see what transpires in Miami, which is already getting underway. Novak Djokovic withdrawing. We don't get a breather whatsoever. Let's shift to the women's side of Indian Wells, and world number one, Aryna Sabalenka, finally getting this title. It's just one that somehow eluded her, and I think she's totally deserving. Her dominance in tiebreaks shown through right at the end against Aryna Rybakina, as she gets the title in a 3-set battle, right down to the wire. She had to save a championship point. Comes through 3-6, 6-3, 7-6, 8-6 the scoreline in the breaker. What a performance from Sabalenka. And my takeaway, I think we have the newest rivalry in women's tennis to really watch. I mean, every time these two take the court, it is so compelling, so powerful, and so impressive to watch.
I think it's the most natural rivalry right now when you have two heavyweight boxers going blow for blow, when you have that many powerful shots in one match. And the stats speak for themselves. Sabalenka leads this head-to-head 9-7. And the interesting aspect about this rivalry is that Rybakina has won 4 finals against Sabalenka, and everything else has come leading into a final or the first round of the WTA finals, quarterfinals, semifinals. However, it just seems like Rybakina has gotten the best of Sabalenka in finals, and we kind of saw that at Indian Wells too. We talk about how clutch of a player Sabalenka is when it matters. We talk about her tiebreak record all the time when it comes to winning when you need her to win the most. So having her kind of go through the motions of being down a match point in the biggest hardcourt final for her besides the Australian Open, it's impressive to see her kind of battle through her own mental side of it to get her frustration out of the way early during that final, clutch up a moment in the finals with that backhand winner, and then go on to beat Rybakina in that final, especially on this stage, being engaged, getting a dog. I think someone sent me a message like, did you see, no, my sister sent me the photo of her ring, and I just said, watch her win the tournament. And she did. It was a storybook ending for her, especially with this entire tournament. And you saw it at the end. She's like, I'm never going to forget this tournament because everything happened at once. So it was kind of a bow on. She put a bow on it. 100%. Yeah,
she really did. And you know what's, I don't know if it's unique to Aryna Sabalenka, but you've heard other athletes not really concerned with revenge matches. Ahead of this final, and Rybakina had not closed out her semifinal win yet, but Aryna was pretty adamant in saying, like, I want revenge for that Australian Open final. I want this rematch. I'm hungry for it. Sabalenka has that killer instinct, which I think she kind of needs to thrive off to deliver in this big stage. And, different personalities work for different players. You're never going to change the kind of fiery attitude that Aryna Sabalenka has. And I think it is an element that makes her so great and why she's currently the world number one player.
And I like how you put that too, because for me, when you said that, it reminds me of how Novak has kind of always kept a chip on his shoulder to continuously motivate him, and that's kind of
Hmm.
what Sabalenka does, and that's probably why they are good friends on tour. You always see them together, always chatting together, always interacting, and seeing the similarities about their competitiveness really bodes well in this situation, because the last time I believe Sabalenka beat Rybakina in the final was, what was it, 2023 Australian Open final.
Yeah.
So it really shows that she has been thinking about this, and she has that personality, outgoing personality and fiery personality, like you said, to put herself out there and put her in a position where she needs that extra motivation to push her beyond what she really did this past final, was clutching up.
Well, yeah, I completely agree. And look, the stats are really building up here. You look, 23 titles, 4 Grand Slams, make that 10 now WTA 1000 crowns.
Yeah.
So it's a really balanced, unbelievably impressive resume. And one thing that sometimes maybe gets overlooked is her unbelievable consistency at the Grand Slam level, even when she isn't winning these titles. You look at the past 6 slams she's played here. She's won 2 of them and finaled the other 3 of them, semis as well, in Wimbledon. And I'm not going to be surprised if she gets one of those 2 slams that's eluded her this year in either Roland Garros, which she narrowly missed out last year to Coco Gauff, or if she breaks through at Wimbledon. She certainly has the game to do it and the tools to do it.
I think if I was to flip it on you and ask you the question, what do you think, which title would mean more to her, Wimbledon or Roland Garros? Which one do you think would both, like, which one do you think she wants more of?
You know what? I think I would previously have said Wimbledon, but I'm actually going to suggest the French Open, given what happened there last year.
Yeah.
It's one thing to lose in a final at a slam, but I think the way she lost, huge number of unforced errors, mental frustration, and letting everything kind of crumble and fall apart, having that rough press conference afterwards where, she was kind of a talking point for about a week after that happened. Everyone was saying Sabalenka is a poor sport, not giving credit to Coco Gauff for the victory. She got a lot of bad press for that. And, and we gave her flack on this podcast too when that happened. She did bounce back from it. I think she learned from it. So credit to her for that. That's the reason I think she will be very motivated to turn things around this year at Roland Garros and see if she can claim that title. She certainly has the tennis to do so.
I totally agree, especially with Rybakina already having a Wimbledon title under her belt. I think it's going to be her goal to, I think Wimbledon is, please correct me if I'm wrong, Wimbledon is the only one that she hasn't made the final of.
That's right. For Sabalenka, yep.
So I think it was the same thing with the US Open. She wants to cross the threshold first and make it there versus getting there and then forgetting about it. I think she just wants to accomplish it first and then move on. So if she, along your lines of thinking, I believe that if she wins Roland Garros, she won't be that upset about Wimbledon. But if she makes the final of Wimbledon this year, loses, it'll be the next starting point for her to build that momentum upon.
Yeah, agreed. Look, if we look kind of elsewhere in the women's field, and credit to Aryna Sabalenka, she continues her great season, making the semifinals. Linda Noskova, maybe a surprise semifinalist. I thought Iga Swiatek was going to have a really strong tournament here. She's played well here in the past. She's won a couple of titles. I felt like maybe, again, she was starting to trend in the right direction. Iga has had hiccups for some time now. Look, she won Wimbledon last year. That was phenomenal. I don't know what has sort of happened to her against kind of top players, but she loses in that quarterfinal to Aryna Sabalenka, 6-2, 4-6, 6-4. Where are you at with Swiatek right now? Because it's not the dominant Swiatek we have seen in the past.
It definitely isn't. And I think one of the things we have to ask ourselves, like with that, you have to give I personally would give more credit to Svitolina and how she changed her game overall after she came back from having a baby. because she became an aggressive player, something that she never really was before she had her kid, and then changed it and switched it upon Swiatek. And I think Swiatek, I won't say is one-dimensional, but she definitely isn't looked at in a draw where she is the unbeatable player. I think coming into it, when she beat Karolina Muchova before Svitolina, that's where I think a lot of people looked at it very differently, where she was that dominant against a player like Muchova that people have, and I personally have talked about being a dark horse in every tournament that she is, unless she's the 1 seed, because she has the ability to take out these bigger seeds. So seeing Swiatek beat her in the fashion that she did, I thought she had a much easier path, and then Svitolina changed it. And I think really showed everyone that once you put Swiatek on her back foot as well as she does, when you play someone like that where she doesn't have necessarily the weapons that a Rybakina and a Sabalenka have, and I think doesn't really have that same feel to her playing Sabalenka and that same rivalry feel that they have, it really shows you that I don't think something has to change. I know there were whispers from other media outlets that said maybe there needs to be a switch of a coach, but that's after one match, right? That's after just playing Svitolina against Muchova. We wouldn't be having this conversation. But against Svitolina and seeing her not outburst, but her talking to her bench the way that she did, it's all these things that we try to analyze to kind of get a better understanding of what's happening.
And look, I mean,
it's hard.
It's not like she doesn't have a high-profile coach here in Wim Fissette, who kind of turned things around for her after what was going on the previous year. And she had kind of a rough patch there for a good chunk of 2024 and early 2025. And then she goes and wins the 3rd slam of the year. I'll just say, like, watching her against Svitolina, and you're right, Alina has amped up the aggression in her game. It's made a massive difference. She's up to number 7 in the world now. She's just so solid, which is amazing. I'm a little surprised, given how athletic, how fast Iga Swiatek is, why she doesn't sometimes lay back a little and just rely on the defense a little bit more. You see it a lot from Coco Gauff, who can just win matches by virtue of defense only, even when she isn't feeling her strokes. And I find Iga, when she's not feeling her strokes, she still tends to press. And she tends to still hit. And exactly. You felt that in the last few games against Svitolina in this quarterfinal. She was trying to force winners and shots that weren't there and unraveled. And it cost her, because Svitolina was so rock solid down the stretch of that match and gets a deserved victory. So we'll see. Obviously, we got the clay court swing coming up soon. And that, to me, is kind of really the litmus test, right, for Swiatek and where her tennis is at.
And I think with that sample size too, it's not going to be really a detriment to her year overall unless we see what she can do on a clay court, right? Like that's the determining factor. It's almost like Casper Ruud. You want to see what they can do on the clay before you determine everything else. And Swiatek won Wimbledon. So it's not like it's always going to be that determining factor, but a majority of her success has come on clay at the French Open. So, and even though she didn't make the finals last year or win Roland Garros, it's still a big factor to see how her progress continues throughout the 2026 season.
Speaking of progress, and I mean, we talk about her progress on this show every week because she's done incredibly well. I mean, Victoria Mboko, I feel like she is really the new breakout star of the WTA.
Yep.
And I caveat that with saying it's not Canadian bias. The WTA accounts are showing her face everywhere. She is becoming a superstar in front of our eyes. And the season that she's put together, the title in Adelaide, just to kick off the season, rather, the finals in Adelaide. Great run in Australia before losing to Sabalenka. Played well in Doha before losing in the finals there.
Mhm.
And then again, now making a quarterfinals at Indian Wells. The first time she's played Indian Wells and looking
Yeah.
so comfortable, getting some huge wins, particularly round of 16, just hitting Amanda Anisimova off the court.
Yeah.
Anisimova, by the end of that one, just looked like she didn't even want to be there anymore. And Mboko was playing so well. Sabalenka takes her out 7-6, 6-4. No shame in losing to the world number one.
Nope.
Mboko just seems to get better and better every time I watch her. It's incredible.
We talk about sophomore slumps after having a breakout year. It seems like she hasn't at all. It's like it just continues to progress really, really well. And you guys have been watching her for some time at this point. So you've seen how well and how mature and how powerful she has become on court. It's just a matter of, and it's not cliche, but it's more of how well can she maintain this, right? And she's going to have to defend Canada this year. She's going to have to defend some points. So it's going to be an interesting way to see how well her second or first full year on tour playing all the major tournaments is going to benefit or hinder her ability to continue this run, because we get all this hype and we get all of this ability to see what she can do, and we see what she can do, and she's still young. She's still in her teens, correct?
19 years old. 19 years old and world number 9.
So we only have up progress to see how much better she can be.
Yeah, look, and I don't like to be the one to make bold proclamations, so I'm just gonna I'm gonna steal Aryna Sabalenka's proclamation. Like, Sabalenka took the mic after their match and said, "This is a future Grand Slam champion."
Exactly.
We don't want to put that type of pressure on Mboko's shoulders. Not that she's going to be listening to this podcast, but I'm sure she read the words that Aryna shared. But she seems to, and I'm telling you from conversations I've had with her, the people who know her, she's the same girl that she was when we spoke to her back when she was 333 in the world to now when she is number 9. And I really think that's going to serve her incredibly well. Not just the remainder of this year, but for her entire career.
I love that. And in seeing that ability too, and having people around her that are grounding her, it sounds like that's what you want to hear, especially in this day and age. I can't believe I'm saying this day and age. I'm 30 years old. But like when you have this amount of media around you, and now being an ambassador for Wilson, and Wilson having their huge collection and having their momentum with the brand and building it up with Mboko, it's amazing to see that she still has this ability. She has that ability to maintain being a teenager and having everything that goes with it. So
no, exactly. And look, she's, knock on wood, she's stayed healthy through this entire season. She had health issues creep up a little bit last year, kind of late summer into the fall. That was a little bit of a story during her junior career. Looks like she's taking care of everything, which is so important. Before we wrap, one more name that maybe really stood out to you on the women's side at Indian Wells these past couple of weeks. I mean, there were some great performances outside of Sabalenka, Rybakina, and Mboko, who we just talked about.
Talia Gibson, right off the bat. I've been a big fan of hers. I made a video about her on our Instagram at TweenerHeadTennisville. Selfless plug. But the Talia Gibson has been on my radar for about 2 years. We saw her qualify for the U.S. Open 2 years ago. We saw her play at the Hall of Fame Open, their inaugural WTA tournament last year. We wanted to talk to her. Unfortunately, we didn't have the chance. So if she ever watches this, would love to have her on the channel. But she definitely is one, beating someone like Paolini, beating, who else did she beat? The list goes on and on.
Well, she beat Towson as well. I mean, which is a big win. Clara as well in the round.
Both
of
3 setters too.
Yeah, so some big wins. And you know, it might be dated when you hear this, but Gibson's already worked her way through qualies of Miami. She won 2 qualifying matches, so she's into the main draw there. So you're right. I mean, this is a kind of a young breakout star. She's just 21, Australian. Looks like she has a really good head on her shoulders when she plays. She looks super composed, kind of at all times.
Great baseliner, good server. Also beat Alexandrova in the second round. So she beat 3 seeded players, all three of them were top 20 at Indian Wells and wins through qualifying. So, and she's up to top 70 right now in the rankings after being just outside the top 100 coming into Indian Wells. She broke top 100 after beating Alexandrova. So she's already top 100, joining the likes of Maya Joint. So the Australians have a lot of good young talent on the women's side as well. And Alex Demonauer, obviously being top 10, I think just got kicked out of the top 10, right? Or is he still in the...
I think he might still have a spot in there.
I think he's 10.
He's still in there. He's 6th, actually. He's good.
Never mind. I'm wrong.
Someone else got kicked out. Bublik got kicked out. Sorry, Alexander.
Yeah,
that's right. A different Alex got kicked out.
There you go.
But we don't need to kick you out here at Matchpoint Canada, Philip. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show, recap some Indian Wells, another awesome event, and we'll be following all the action in Miami. Phil, thanks so much for joining us.
No, thank you for having me. I really do appreciate it. It's always fun talking to you and Mike when he is present. But I appreciate you having me on. Hopefully I can come back anytime soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime.
Thank you, guys.
You've been watching Matchpoint Canada. We will talk to you next time.
Bye, guys.
Thank you guys so much for watching us at Matchpoint Canada. If you like our work, follow along, hit the subscribe button below.